He's a lead AP and has designed over 23 projects that achieved lead certification. He was just named 40 under 40 by the Consulting Specifying Engineer magazine. He was also just elevated to the senior status for American Society of Healthcare Engineers. He's an active member of ASHE and is an ASHE volunteer with responsibility in assisting ASHE with providing peer support and assisting in special projects. Gary is also the treasurer of NCR-SHE, which is the Washington, D.C. chapter of ASHE. So please join me in welcoming Gary this evening.
Yep, so you've all hear what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about designing ORs to meet new technological advancement. So what I want to start with is that, many of us have been touched by, in some way by healthcare, especially ORs. We have family members that undergoes, surgery, and the intent is to keep, somewhere your life. The situation is that it's on us designers, hospital folks and engineers and also manufacturers that we have a big part to play in that process. And my presentation will talk about the technologies that's actually taking over the space, and it's all improving the safety and improving the outcome of patient care in healthcare facilities. So the first thing I want to talk about is operating rooms are changing. They're not like they used to be. So that's something that we need to understand. That it's daunting, it's different, it's sometimes scary. To look into the future and see what it's going to be, but it's also exciting because it's really pushing the envelope of technology, but it's also ensuring that that the surgeons are doing doing their job with much more accuracy than how they used to. And I asked the question why they're changing. They're changing, as I said, to improve patient safety, which is extremely important. Another thing is that how does technology help? And that's what I'm going to be talking about as well. And it increases the technical performance of surgeons. So what you do when you have robotics taking over surgeries, in which the surgeon is still in control, but to minimize the tremors that associated with a surgeon that's getting older, to improve the accuracy of the surgeon, you have robotics actually replacing surgeon and actually doing some of the procedures that a surgeon usually do. Why do we care? We care because we're architects, we're engineers. We shape these spaces. We're responsible engineers. Responsible for infection control. And that's extremely important. What air changes required, what humidity level is required, and how much air change is required to minimize infection by bacterial infection or fungi or the viruses. So it's extremely important. Manufacturer reps, you rep all the products that has to do with ventilation for that space, so you're a great part of it. And healthcare staff. Healthcare staff are responsible for keeping the space and maintaining the environment. So it speaks to all of us that are here now. What the disruptive vision are the fundamental concepts is what's shaping ORs of the future. And I'm going to read verbatim. New technologies are emerging from information age. Discoveries are driving our basic approach in all areas of healthcare. So just like how the Internet of Things is taking over in terms of information technology, it's going from what I call, it's no longer bloods and guts. It's going to bits and bytes. So it's more technology that's actually driving. They're not opening up everybody now to actually do surgeries. It's laparoscopic surgeons doing keyhole. It's robotics. It's minimally invasive. It's 3D imaging. So it's all different aspects of data-driven technology is actually driving the OR space. So I want to look at the surgery and see what it was. Back in the days, in the past, see what surgery looked like. If we look at current days now, you know, it's the same surgeons that you have open heart surgeries or open, you know, open abdomen. But also looking at the current, and I call it the current future because robotics is actually, you know, a prevalent and a new type of technology that's been taking over surgery rooms, and there's a whole lot of robotics that's going on, and I'll talk about it later on. So I call it the current future because the surgeons are still responsible, but they're actually directing robots to actually do some of the surgical procedures that's usually done by hand. And as Yogi Berra said, the future is not what it used to be. So that's something that we have to understand. You know, it's changing. You know, it's either we embrace it or not. But it's you know, we just have to understand what's going on and what technology are arriving. And I'm going to say, you know, I want you guys to take out your cell phones now. And this is just an interactive session. This is called Call Everywhere. I want you to text Garold Hamilton 022 to the number 223323 right now. And I want you to answer this question, A, B, and C, just to see what my audience thinks of the first operating room. When was it created? So you should see a response when you text Garold Hamilton 022 to 233. You should respond that the poll is so you just type A, B, or C, and then you will.
Text it first.
Yes. So it should send you back an automated message.
Oh, you signed up for Gary's Instagram.
Yeah. So you're going to be graded. So
Mine says you need to use that. Anybody else?
no, just what you do. Just text.
Is that an O or a 0?
It's 0. It's a 0. So you see that's So it looks like the 16th century is some of the overwhelming. You know, it's moving. So we still have the 16th century. Open, the 17th century is taking over. Oh. So,
022 or 022?
022. 022. So 16th and 17th century. Huh? Oh, so the 17th century. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the polling now, and the right answer is actually the 18th century. I got it right. So, and let's talk about surgeries and the trajectory and how surgery has changed over the years. What we had is that traditionally surgery was done inside your home. And because of certain reasons, in terms of hospitals are usually noisy, infections are usually prevalent in a hospital environment. So people are much more comfortable with having surgeries at their home. That's a traditional type of thing. And surgery also, and the surgical room.
Too late now.
A surgical room wasn't separated from a normal hospital ward. It was one or the other. So that's the reason why it may be created before, but so it was not part. It's not until the 18th century that John Hopkins actually separated the surgical room from the ward in the hospital.
So that was right up here in Baltimore?
Yes. Yes. So, and the first picture of the surgery that was That was John Hopkins. And what you have the surgery was like a stadium back in the days, actually, that you could have people watch it, they actually come to watch you actually do surgeries and stuff and everything. So it was quite chaotic and traumatic, for patients. So they didn't want to be in that environment, so they'd rather stay at home. So looking at the history of surgeries, what you have open surgeries, which 1855, which is the traditional surgeries. And you have endolume, which is the endoscopy. So that's where you have tubes insert in organs to do a visual, and then you basically could do surgical procedure by that. Then you have minimal invasive, what you call the laparoscopic or keyhole surgeries. That was in the 1990s. And then you have robotics coming around, so it's a multi-invasive procedures. And then the non-invasive procedures where you have directed energy to do tubular ablation, like treating cancer and stuff, with us actually using energy to actually do that without with very little incision. And what it is, you will have there's going to be continual change, in each of these, as we go on from time to time. But what I'm going to demonstrate to you is that we have a mix of match of what surgery is today. And it's really directing the path of what surgery is going to be in the future. We're looking at the technical advancement that's taking place, and what you have image-guided procedures. That's the big part of it. Basically, your surgeon could have three-dimensional view of you instantly while they're doing the surgery, so they can make informed decisions. And that's what's actually driving surgery and driving what the OR, the today's OR and the OR of the future will look like. So looking at robotic surgery, which I think is going to be it's very disruptive, and that's what's driving a whole lot of technology. You have the Puma in 1985. There's the Probot, and there's the Robodog, and that XX is intentional because we're going to talk about a type of surgery system that's taken over. That there's 4,500 of these robotic surgery system that's in hospitals, throughout, and we're going to talk about that a bit more. So you have tubular ablation, which is for cancer treatment, and also just talking about what it's the ability for the surgeon to see a three-dimensional view of everything that he's doing. So it's easy for him to make an informed decision, and that's the most important part of the advancement that's going on. The surgeon is still the center of all the surgical procedure, and I think that's something that people people could be connected to, because there's still a personal touch to it. So there's not as yet, and maybe in the future, and maybe that's what the future look like. That the computer is going to be guiding the robots, and they're going to be doing their process by voice control and not by the actual hand movement of surgeons. So the surgeon is still actually operating all these robotics, and basically what it's doing is amplifying their accuracy. So a surgeon actually is using their hand. It's the same hand motion that they're actually using, but what you're removing is the tremors. They're not being as tired as they used to be, because they're guiding the machines and the actual movements of the machine instead of actually using their hand. So if you think about it, it's like doing a sewing machine compared to using hand sewn clothes. So it's similar, but initially, the accuracy will be, not as good, but as you go on, with artificial intelligence, these machines are going to be much smarter, and I think eventually these robots are actually going to take over and actually be voice commanded to actually have to direct surgeries. And to say that that's futuristic, that's not true, because there's a lot of research and a lot of tests that's been going on that robots are actually doing surgeries with minimal assistance from surgeons. So there's a lot of technologies going on in terms of research and stuff that's going on now, and if you search over the net, you'll see a whole lot of stuff. So the technology is there, people are doing it, so it's not in the near future. It's something that's actually going on as we speak. But one thing remains now, and that gives give the patients that comfort level that most of the robots that are used in surgeries are still being directed by surgeons. What I wanted to do is to talk about, you know, I'm a Star Trek fan, so this is something that was from the Star Trek. It was all the way from Star Trek 4.
Damn it, do you want an acute case on your hands? This woman has immediate postprandial upper abdominal distension. Out of the way, get out of the way. What did you say she's got? Cramps. Who are you? Why aren't you masked? Who are these people?
I don't know.
What the hell is that? What are you doing? Tearing of the middle meningeal artery. What's your degree in? Dentistry? How do you explain slow impulse, low respiratory rate, and coma? Fundoscopic examination. Fundoscopic examination is unrevealing in these cases. A simple evacuation of the expanding epidural hematoma will relieve the pressure. My God, man. Drilling holes in his head's not the answer. The artery must be repaired. Now put away your butcher knives and let me save this patient before it's too late. I'm gonna have you removed. Don't. God, such unprofessional behavior. Into that little room. What is that? Gun? Nurses?
Crazy.
Leave this. No idea. Dealing with medievalism here. Chemotherapy. Endoscopic examinations. Wake up.
Well, you gotta remember this movie predates even the MRI.
Exactly. So that shows actually, you know, how powerful this thing is that people are thinking about. So this is using imaging.
Name, rank.
Chekhov, Pavel, Tank, Hot Meadow.
That's the patient, doctor. He's gonna make it. He came in with a sheet. One little mistake.
So he said one little mistake. So that's when you're talking about the unintended circumstances that you know, it was a woman that actually went into surgery and a man came out. So you know, you don't know what AI or what robotics is going to do and stuff and everything, and that's what you're scared of. But it's showing that, you know, you don't have to be, you know, open, you know, the patient, and that's what the future is, you know. But we don't know, you know. It's talking about people are typing already. So this is the Da Vinci that we talked about, and these are surgical machines that are in a lot of surgeries everywhere. They're in the Children's Hospital, you know, I've seen it in Garold Healthcare, and what it is it's actually you know, the cost is about between 1.5 and 2.5 billion dollars, but they've replaced a whole lot of different procedures, you know, in the hospital. You know, this is a very powerful machine. It's 50 times as accurate as a surgeon. It's still directed by the surgeon. You know, the reason why, it looks like we're having all above as the answer. People are still typing away. I like this. This is fun. Yeah, and I think the answer is going to remain. It's all of the above. What the surgeon is able to do is a surgical robotic system. It has imaging that you could actually see three-dimensional view of organs during the time of that you're doing the surgery, and it's also the diagnostic. So it's all of the above. You know, and the Da Vinci is it's a powerful system. They're actually working on a Da Vinci that's going to be directed by computer. They're doing that right now. The Da Vinci is in its second portion. It's the only machine that's FDA approved, robots that FDA approved to work in surgeries. And this was in 2000. So this is something that's in a lot of surgeries, that a whole lot of surgical procedures that it does, and it's the question is always asked sometimes, why is it that that most surgical procedures are not done by robots? It's much more expensive than traditional procedures. That's where it is now. But over time, you know that basically when ideas or items or information or it's new, it comes at a high cost point. As we go along, it's going to be much more competitive. The price is going to go down, and there's still cases. There was cases in which you had that patients suing the Da Vinci manufacturers and stuff and everything for malpractice in terms of so there's stuff that's going on, but by much and large is that this system has been implemented and used a whole lot in the healthcare system. So I wanted to show you what Da Vinci can do as a procedure. It's pretty cool. This is a grate. It looks big on the screen, but this is a small grate that the skin was dislodged from, and the Da Vinci is looking to actually suture this small grate to put it back together. And this is still directed by the surgeon.
So the surgeon's moving the hand?
Yes. So it's amplified the surgeon hand movement. That's exactly what it's doing. So it's not doing it.
So it's still not optically reading where the line is and doing it itself? It's
Yes.
not there? None of them are there yet?
Not there. They are working on it, and they have self-directed procedures that can be done, but the FDA is still kind of leery in terms of accepting those technologies. But it's removing a whole lot of inaccuracy from the surgeon, and as surgeons get older, the situation is that their accuracy gets less, and this helps them improve their accuracy and improve their outcomes as well. There's less blood associated with it, much more accurate, and patients recover much more quicker when you use a Da Vinci system. And it shows that, it's actually in a test tube like that. That's how crazy it is, because it's so small that
Hey Garrett,
yeah.
was there any whining during surgery?
Oh.
So I'm going to go in the more technical part of my presentation. So that was the fun stuff. What we want to do is to go through the FGI guidelines. The most current is 2014. That defines what an operating room should look like, the conditions, and all the requirements. And I want to read verbatim, because the operating room definition has changed in the 2014. So there's no longer Class A, Class B, and Class C operating rooms. That was done by that's in the new version. It's now defined. You have a procedure room, an operation room, and then by extension you have hybrid wards. And procedure rooms just talk about restricted or unrestricted areas, and you don't have to have local anesthesia. If you have it, you don't have to have an exhaust system. So that's what the procedure rooms is. In my design, most operating rooms are procedure rooms. That's how you design it. They have the same air change rate. They have almost the same conditions. Might be a little smaller, but basically they're almost the same. The operating room now, talk about restricted areas, and that's extremely important. Restricted area means that you have to be going down before you actually enter that room. So that's the biggest change that actually that's in the code. A hybrid OR, however, is an extension of a normal OR room, but what it is that you have to have a fixed imaging equipment in that OR. It cannot be OR in which it's portable. That's not the same. If it's portable, it's not classified as a hybrid OR by the FGI guidelines. So I want to dig deeper to actually look at what are the requirements for OR, for traditional OR, normal OR. The requirement is a 400 square feet minimum. Minimum meaning that that's the minimum they expect you to have the size of the OR. It could be 600, it could be 700. It could be as big as you want it to be, but they give you a minimum requirement in terms of the actual size of the OR. The minimum size of a hybrid OR by the guidelines also said 650 square feet, which it talks about 24 feet if it's a new OR, or 22 feet if it's a renovation. I've never seen a hybrid OR 650 square feet. It's always twice the size. And there's a caveat that says that it depends on the imaging equipment that's installed. They're usually huge. If it's an MRI, if it's a CAT scan, they're huge. It's a lot of space. There's, control room is required, which is another 120 square feet. So as designers, as facility managers, whenever you're trying to undertake these projects and stuff and everything, there's a huge space requirement. And the minimum size of a hybrid OR that I've seen is 1,100 square feet. So that's the size the minimum size that you require, so you have to look out and make sure that you're not on the sword in terms of your size of your hybrid OR. And these are just some images of a hybrid OR space. Another thing that we want to talk about is that you need a lot of high ceiling height, 15 to 16 feet, the higher the better. There's a whole lot of equipment in the ceiling. There's ductwork, there's laminar diffusers, there's a C-arm for the imaging equipment. There's a whole lot of items that needs to be coordinated, that have to be structurally supported within this space, and have to maintain a 10 feet actual clearance to ceiling, so that you can navigate the space as best as possible. So if you're going to renovate a hospital to add a hybrid OR, and you have 12 to 13 foot floor to floor, I would recommend you do not try, because it's going to be extremely difficult. It's workable. You could try it, but it takes intense coordination and a whole lot of on-site coordination to get that done. And one of the lead lining is required. So if you're doing what it is you're basically putting an MRI within an OR room. That's what you're doing. So if you're designing an MRI, you have to have lead lining. So you have to think about stuff like there's an equipment that you have to put in that has a heavy cooling load that's associated with it. And we're talking about a traditional OR is 5 watts per square foot. We're talking about 15 to 20 if you're looking at MRI equipment in that OR. And also, as I said, you have to have a separate control equipment room. The code said that it's possible and it's likely. It's absolutely necessary. You don't design an MRI without a control room. You have to have a control room. So you have to add another 120 square feet to your space. For its structural coordination is extremely important. The equipments are extremely heavy.
If you say Da Vinci, are you therefore saying hybrid?
No. Da Vinci is part of the whole process. Redundant cooling should be considered, and in most ORs, you have redundant cooling. It's a normal practice for most hospitals, because that's one of the most important cost center for your hospital. So you want to have, if you want to have a glycol cooling that acts as a backup. But you have to think, if you have a hybrid OR, you have to make sure that you have some redundant cooling. Think about it.
You're still trying to get all this down to 65?
Oh well, and we're going to talk about that also in terms of the temperature, because that's the code says 68 to 75, and we're going to talk about it, but that's the minimum that's required. The temperature of your OR depends on what your surgeon wants your OR to be. It has nothing to do with the code. So it's yes, it's 68 to 75 that ASHE 170 2013 says, but it's what your surgeon wanted to be. They're the levers, and they will come and tell you that they want 62 degrees in their OR, and that's what they want it to be, and it's non-negotiable. and I've seen that a whole lot in spaces that we've designed. I wanted to look at best practice in designing hybrid ORs. And some of the best practices is to ensure that you have a full-scale mock-up when you're doing this. It's non-negotiable. You have to mock up it somehow and have all your partners, actually, all your stakeholders, your clinicians, your surgeon staffs, and all the technical user groups in this room walking around, making sure that they have the right space requirements for the equipment and stuff, and you're modeling every equipment that's in the space. You absolutely have to, or else you're not going to get it right. Early decisions have to be made. The size of your space is it's extremely dependent on the type of imaging equipment that you have in the manufacturer. Siemens is very different from another manufacturer, and it's a fact of the segment. So you have to make sure that you pin down your manufacturer as early as possible. I say DD on this, but I would say in SDs, and even in your concept, that you should try to make sure that you know and select your equipment way before you start designing. And as most design and most architects, we design in a 3D platform. But what we need to do also is to utilize the platform to the highest. You have ways that you could actually model these rooms in which you could have, you can use your VT to walk through these rooms before you do your mock-up. So you could actually have a visual idea of your space requirements and have your surgeon and your stakeholders walk through this room using these visuals just to have an idea of what it will be like in practice. It's sometimes understated, but the infrastructural impact of having a hybrid OR in a hospital that doesn't have one is huge. It's expensive, and it's something that should be well thought through, and something that should be priced. You should also think about the effect that it's going to have on your actual cooling, your cooling infrastructure, because the equipment and the loads is going to be much more than the traditional ORs. A lot of ORs, a lot of hospitals, are now going in and they're renovating their OR and adding a hybrid OR to existing infrastructure that sometimes it doesn't work. So you have to think about how you can probably improve it. There's a cost implication associated with it also. So that's something that you have to make sure that you watch out for. MEP consideration. That's what we talked about. Separate cooling is required sometimes for the OR space. Closed loop cooling. Some imaging equipment require closed loop cooling, meaning that you have to have pipes running through your ORs that's connected directly to your MRI equipment, which means you're penetrating your dead lining within your ORs, and you have water running through your ORs, which is like having water running through your IT space or your server room, which is a complete no-no. So you have to think about, talk to your engineers about how can I ensure that I don't have water leaking or spilling over onto my patient while I'm doing the surgery. So you have to think about double jacketing and stuff and everything for your piping, but also make sure that you have drain pans designed as part of your system. So as facility guys, make sure that you review the drawings just to make sure that this is part of the construction document. Looking at there's also additional electrical requirement for these space. So we have to make sure that we have, there's room for the extra transformers, extra panels. There's also heat exchangers that's required, and also pumps for these closed loop systems. So there's additional space requirements for those stuff that you have to look out for. Right.
And the effect from generators.
So that again, they have to be 100% backed up by generators. So your generator capacity, increase by 10-15%, without just adding one room. So that's something that you have to think about also. And also, as engineers, there's something called RF shield for ductwork. So any ductwork that's penetrating that space has to be shielded. And this is to protect the integrity of your deadline. So that's something that you have to make sure that you include in your design and in your specification. I have this ASHE 170. ASHE 170 is the ventilation guidelines for healthcare. It's updated every 4 years. It's a year behind the FGI guidelines. So FGI guidelines is 2014, that's current. It's 2013 that's current for ASHE 170. And it's actually included at the back of the document. So they're one of the other, they comes together. I don't expect you to read these this table, but it shows the guidelines of what's required, for all healthcare rooms within a hospital. And it's table 7.1. This is the Bible for all engineers, and this is what we use. And I'm going to just show you the conditions that was defined by the table. It says that in an OR you have to have a minimum air change of 20 for an OR. Minimum, and again, it says minimum, meaning that it could be 30 or 40, but for a hybrid OR, the equipment in your space dictates your load and the amount of people in your space. When you calculate your actual HVAC loads, it's usually more than 20 air change anyway. So most of these spaces are 25, 30 air changes. So they're just describing the minimum requirements so that you understand that this requirement is for making sure that you change the air as much as possible so that you can remove the bacteria and all the microorganisms and all the viruses and stuff that are entrained in air within the space. The next thing it says also, it talks about positive pressure. Or doesn't matter what type of OR it is, it has to be positive with respect to the external part. Meaning that what you don't want to do, you're in the OR space operating, you have to have air going towards the outside. Meaning that you don't want unclean air coming from the external to come into your OR space. So it's extremely important that you make sure that your room is positive. It says unidirectional diffusers are required. It has to be 25 to 35 CFM per square feet. So what it is it's your patient zone that you're actually defining and your patient table that's within your OR. It's actually saying that you don't want the air to be moving too fast. If you're opening a patient, you have to think about it. It's hypothermia in terms of is the patient going to be too cold? Is the air going to be too fast going over the patient that is going to be uncomfortable? So that's the reason why they actually define a minimum requirement for that as well. Over the patient and the surgical teams. That's where you're trying to watch. That's where you're trying to get rid of the bacteria. That's where you want to make sure that area is completely sterile. And that's the requirement. What I always like to do when I'm doing this presentation is to look at where these requirements came from. I'm not the traditional engineer who try to accept everything I'm told. I always try to understand. Why should it be 20? Like, where does that come from? Like, was it just pulled out of a bag? Like, what research actually brought us to where we are? And it's all the way in the 1960s that these requirements actually were defined, and it's the Memories and the managed research actually on air change rate actually produced Kenneth Goddard chart, and basically he produced a chart based on their research that was done. And what it's actually saying is that they modeled the air change rate and measure the bacterial colonies within the OR. So the higher the air change rate in the OR, the lower the bacterial colonies. So that's exactly how they define it. So as you can see, in terms of looking at 20 air change rate, where the bacterial colony is, the more the air change rate is, the less the bacterial colonies within the space. But what they're saying is that, we have to have a point in which we have a cutoff, and we can't we can't have 100 air change rate because it's not going to be economical in terms of cost. So, what they actually did is say, okay, they define some different types of surgical procedures and says, if it's a heart surgery, if it's in patient rooms or open heart, it's 25. It's going to be general surgery is going to be 20, and for open heart it's going to be 40. So this is where all the air change rate came from. The next thing we want to look at is the diffuser requirements. One of the most important part of the OR is the laminar flow diffusers. That's where you have the air actually washing the patient, washing the surgeon, and ensuring that infection doesn't set in during surgery. Extremely important. It's funny that people try to understand my affinity to ORs and surgery. I did a surgery when I was 19 on my kneecap. My kneecap was I had a bike accident. My kneecap was split into two, and I had an open kneecap surgery, and I was sent home, and infection set in. I went back into the hospital for 3 months, and it took like about 3 months for the infection to get out of my knee. So if it's not done right, there's consequences that's associated with it, and that's the reason why I like to look into it. I study it, I research, I do a whole lot because and if I'm designing a space or a space, I'm ensuring that I dot all the I's and cross all the T's, because I have to make sure that a patient that's going to go in the OR that I designed doesn't actually have the same experience that I had. The next thing it says it has to be 30% of the primary diffuser area shall not be occupied. 30% is occupied by non-diffuser users. So you have booms and outside other arrays actually that's allowed to be in the space, but 7% of the space have to be the diffuser, the laminar diffuser boom space. And also it says that you need additional diffusers. Sometimes based on the load requirements, you have to have additional diffusers to actually to bring up your load. Looking at air distribution also, actually one set also talk about the 25 to 30 CFM per square foot. One of the other requirements is that you require 2 low exhaust or return grill within the space. Now, even in the USP 800, which is the requirement for labs and pharmacy, that you have to have low diffusers. And this is to do with entrainment. It's to do with the direction of air and making sure that when you have an air that's passing over your patient, it's actually following the path of least resistance to get out of the space and back to your air handling units or wherever you want it to be. So that's the reason why they have it as at the lowest point. And this has been proven by using CFDs and also smoke tests within the space. As I said, the pressure relationship is extremely important, and I'm going to talk about different ways that you can maintain pressure within the space. And the code also said that you can reduce the air change. So if you have 20, 30 air change in your space, you're able to reduce the air change if it's unoccupied. So you can imagine, if you have 30 air changes in your space, and you're able to reduce it to 10 air changes during unoccupied space, you're saving a tremendous amount of energy. On a single OR, you can save up to $10,000 per year by just reducing and just having it's called the setback. So you're basically setting back your OR so you could save energy. If it's not been used, you can reduce your air change within the space. But what you have to do, you still have to maintain the condition. So it still have to be positive so that you don't introduce any unwanted bacteria and any microorganism from external into your OR room. You have to make sure that the humidity level is still maintained, but you just you can reduce the air change in the space. Also, it talks about humidifiers. A humidifier is required in hybrid ORs because all the equipments and even when you talk about the server rooms and stuff and everything, they're very sensitive to low humidity. I don't know if you've ever in your house and you touch something and you have that static that actually shocks you. That's low humidity. So your equipment will underperform if there's low humidity within the space. So you have to be very careful that there's humidity, setting, or is humidity provided as part of your system in the space. And it talks about downstream the type of humidity that's used, but also they talk about stuff like if you're using amine street in your steam system, you shouldn't have it direct steam injected into your humidifiers, into your system. So there's additional stuff that you have to look out for when you're designing these systems. I wanted to talk about this in terms of room pressurization because often, the facility managers ask me like, how do I get my OR pressurized? What's the right, pressure? How do you make sure that it's done? If it's an existing space, you might have some problems. The formula that actually says that the flow within the OR, in or outside the OR, is proportional to the area. And the dP is the differential pressure in inches that's constant. So what it's actually saying is that your architect is responsible for your pressurization for your space, not your engineer.
Actually, you should drywall.
So your architect has to specify and ensure that you have the right type of seal, you have the right type of partition type, your doors are gasketed, and you have to make sure that there's no minimum filtration possible through your OR space. And that's the key. If you get that right, it's dead easy to get your space, or else you have to pay the balancers extra money to actually get your space balanced. But the ideal pressure requirement is 0.01 inch in WC in terms of your pressure. And when you go into an OR room, and if you have a visual monitor, you will see that it's going to be about that, or 0.002 or 0.015. That's where it's going to be. But the rule of thumb for engineers is that if you're seeing a design and you're not seeing like about 20% difference between your return and the supply, you have to think about it, because you have to have less air that you're taking out of your space and your return, just to make sure that you're supplying, to make sure that you have a quality space. So that's the graph that they use to actually look at the room leakage, and that's extremely important, and that's one of the most important part. You cannot have a negative space for your ORs. And I've seen it before. The VA just closed on a facility that we were working on in Northport that it was negative pressure, which means that you have all type of bacteria and stuff and everything coming into the ORs during a surgical procedure. Laminar diffuser, we talk about that as well in terms of the face velocity should be above 35 feet per minute. And I wanted to demonstrate the reason why. And you want to make sure that there's minimum erosion occur of the surgical team members, because if you think about it, most of the bacteria and the microorganisms actually on your clothes, and even the scrubs that the surgeon wears that they wear in the surgery. I don't know if you ever seen a lot of surgeons walking outside going for lunch in the same scrubs and stuff and everything. So those are the same stuff that they wear outside. So you have to make sure that the airflow over your surgeon is not as as fast, so that it dislodges those and direct it to the patient, the opening of the patient that they're operating on. Overcooling of the patient also is also important. An uncomfortable draft. There's two types of laminar flow system that's used in ORs. There's the full laminar system, or the cheaper system, in which you have the air curtains, meaning that you have the laminar flows in the middle, and around the edges you have slot diffusers at higher velocity. That's not laminar, it's just higher velocity that, the thought is that it actually creates a barrier, and your laminar flow is insulated from the external environment. It doesn't work as well for hybrid ORs, And we, as a designer at Smith Group, what we do, we recommend to have full laminar diffusers for these spaces because they have too much equipment that, you know, when you have high velocity flows in those spaces, there's so much directional flows that's occurring that you have too much incidental, and then you have an air entrainment that's affecting your operating zone. So it's recommended that you have a full laminar sealing when you're doing your hybrid ORs. Another important part of actually having pressurization, and that's dealt into how the air is actually distributed in your ORs. So you have VAV boxes that serves an normal space. That's what it's been used mostly. And the challenges that you have with VAV boxes is that you know, they have airflow sensors that go bad after a while. So if you don't have it checked on a regular basis, yearly, that means your pressurization is going to be off. And most ORs don't have a visual means of actually knowing that. So the only way you actually know that is maybe you have a court case to deal with, and they go and check the pressurization, and oh, it's negative. So because there's no visual means, most ORs they're just there, they expect it to be positive pressure. So it was done 10 years ago when it was balanced, and nobody bothered to check it after. So every OR that I'm designing, I have a visual. Like if it's a warning tube or a visual monitor that actually tells you that the room is positive pressure, so that you know as a surgeon it's extremely important. So most of my clients, they buy on and they do it because they know it's the right thing to do. Another thing that we've implemented is using Venturi valves, and the lab environment is extremely critical in terms of pressurization. So the lab environment always use Venturi or Phoenix valves to do the balancing of their distribution in the space. We see the OR as nothing but a lab space in terms of maintaining pressure. You know, we're talking about people's life that were, you know, that you know. So I don't think that we should, you know, we should be debating on the best means of actually maintaining pressure in that space. So Venturi valves extremely accurate. They're slightly much more expensive than a VAV, but that's what we recommend for hybrid OR space. There's an extension we can talk about, Phoenix valve, which is almost the same, a little more expensive, but if you're doing a renovation project, a Phoenix valve is much more expensive, and it's difficult to mix and match Phoenix valves with a VAV system. So I wanted to talk about what the control is. The most important part of the OR is actually how you control it. And it's, and me being a Trekkie, the OR that control of the future is going to be like this.
Operator identification. Targeting. Locked.
And I'm going to show you a visual that actually demonstrates that it's not much different.
Awaiting further instructions.
So the whole dashboard, you know, this dashboard is located at nurse stations in an OR, and it's something that I'm gonna show you, you know, what they're doing. The situation is because of artificial intelligence, because of Internet of Things, because of data, because of you know, all those information. We're in the information age, in which we're able to store all these information that we get. So if we want to have temperature stored, humidity stored, everything during a surgical procedure, we can have this stored in one platform. That we have, you know, the BMS, you know, can be this information protocol that has all the information. That could do scheduling. It could tell you, if a surgeon comes in at 7 o'clock, sign in to the system and select a temperature that they want. Okay, we don't want the 68 to 75 FGI guidelines temperature, we want 62. You can actually see that the surgeon did his surgery at 8 o'clock, and the temperature that he selected was 62 degrees, and his humidity was this, and his air change was this, and at that time it was a positive pressure of 0.015. inches within the room. So all the FGI conditions, was perfect, and the surgery was done on the perfect operational conditions. And this can all be documented by having this input into the BMS system. And what we talk about is having an energy efficient control sequence to do this, and the engineers has to understand what that means. Safe closed loop, meaning that it has to be extremely accurate, and you have to have fast feedback, because in this age, you're not going to wait like 5 minutes or 20 minutes saying that I need 62 in my space and I'm going to wait like 2 hours to get that done. It have to be fast and instant feedback for most of these stuff. Space management and turnover. One of the most important things in an OR is turnover. A surgeon wants to know, when can I get in? So when a surgeon is finished with his surgery and gets out, the other surgeons want to know, is it 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? This is cost. So if you can actually have space management in this system, it's automated and it tells you that, okay, your room is ready. It's up to the right condition, it's 15 or 20 minutes, and your surgeon knows exactly what time you're working with. And this is all automated, and you don't have to basically, try to think about it, or you don't have to write stuff down to actually get this done. And this is something that's in most controls now. And we've just used it for Carillion Healthcare System also. We actually use a train control system to do all these automation. And they have an iPad type control at the nurse station. So there's something that we were talking about. It has to be intuitive, and it has to be easily used. So it doesn't have to be a technical person that's actually using it. It should be as easy as having an iPad and just basically using a touch screen to navigate your control. So this is what a typical OR of the future would look like in terms of control. It has the valves, it has all the monitors, it has the room monitors, it has a nurse station visual. It has room controls that actually can tell you the temperature, the air change rate, everything that's going on inside and outside the OR. Extremely accurate, clear and intuitive, and have extremely fast feedback. So this is a typical platform. It's actually a Johnson's Control platform that I used before. So it actually has the scheduling. It has printout, and everything. It merged the BMS system with the central plan with the surgical procedures. So everything actually occurs in one platform. So I wanted to look in the future and say, I wanted to take a stance and look at the research that I've done and actually tell you what the operating room in the future will look like, or what hospital in the future will look like. And these are the 6 points that I've put. And what it is, it says activity will be constantly monitored, measured, and adjusted using a variety of sensors and data streams. So it's no different from what we're doing now in terms of the Internet of Things. Patient room will be multifunctional, enabling a wide variety of procedures and imaging to occur in the same room. So we might not even need a OR for surgery. And that's what the future is saying. So it looks like we're actually going back in time. So it's funny. So so should it be in the beginning? Should it be in the end as well? So design and accommodate machine intelligence, robotics efficiency, while enhancing the human-machine interaction will be your norm. Operating room per se, as I said, will no longer exist. Teaching and research will be dispersed to a variety of care settings. And autonomous robots and machine intelligence will replace routine functions, and that's what we're talking about. And that's something that's occurring now, that there's a whole lot of research going on, and we have to understand that, in an information age, these are the stuff that actually are taking over ORs. And just showing you some research and stuff that's done. That's actually a surgery that's operated by machines. The surgeon's actually outside and they're not touching the patients. So this is something that research that's going on as we speak. So it's not too far in the future. It's something that's going on now. That's me, Max Sleepy. This is a anesthesiologist that's a machine. So this machine replaces a doctor who actually has his medical degree and served one of the major role in the surgery, put you to sleep and wake you up. So this is a machine that actually does this. And this is at the University of British Columbia. This is something that they are using and they have used in their surgical procedure. So we're not far away. You know, we're there. You know, we're having robots and machines actually replacing. This is a scrub nurse. So this is the robot that's a scrub nurse that's replacing a scrub nurse. And this is something that they're working on. It's something that they have used. It's something that hasn't been approved by the FDA, but it's in today's what they're working as you know, as a replacement for a scrub nurse within the war. It's, you know, it's quite daunting, but it's a reality. And you know, kind of closing, it's just like, you know, it's operation at home. So why should I go to the hospital? You know, I just want to relax in my own home and actually have my own, you know, have Amazon deliver my surgery kit that I do my surgery over the weekend. So you know, it's funny, but this is what it is. You know, this is the age that we're in, and you know, I would be, you know, be surprised that's what it is. So you know, so this is my closing, and you know. Yeah, as the guy said, got a hernia surgery, walk right off the operation, right out. So, you know, so this is it's interesting to look into the future to see what the OR of the future looks like. One of the resounding thing is it doesn't change the requirements in terms of MEP-wise, architectural-wise. You know, the space requirements is different, but it also tells you that, you know, the main reason for this is to improve patient safety, to improve the accuracy of surgeons, and reduce the overall errors that occurs within surgery, and just minimize your time of actually getting better, and minimize the whole the cost of care. You know, so as time goes on, and robotics price goes down, you know, it will be somehow replacing surgeon in doing a very important surgical procedures. So I want to close. I want to open up for questions. You know, the floor is open for questions.
Right. The study that you showed about the air change rate that affects a lot of the mechanical guys in here.
Yes.
When they did that study in the 60s. It was Kevin Goddard, like that. What filtration was being used at the time? You know, what kind of filtration, or like all the other aspects we've learned since the 60s?
Yes.
Has the study been redone to say, you know, we needed 20 air changes when we had 8 filters, you know, or 16. Outside air was at 5%.
Yeah.
Have they redone it?
They haven't redone it.
Have they?
So I should tell you, they haven't been done. So I'm not sure what filtration that and the level of filtration has gotten better. So you know, we're still not sure in terms of you know, the air change rates. It's still, you know, it's still based on what's the best air change rate to minimize infection. And to be honest, most of the infection that occurs in hospital doesn't occur because of the air system. It occurs mostly because of you know, the surgeon in terms of their, you know, their gowns, in terms of you know, curtains, in terms of other stuff that's you know, surgical you know, surgical equipments. So it's not really. So we're doing a good job in terms of specifying the right type of environment and using the right, because you go in most surgical design have filters. You know, we try to make sure that we you know, we're tight as possible in terms of ensuring that we design and install the right type of filtration that's required for these spaces. But yes, you're right. I think 96s, they should actually take a look on the air change rate. So you should know the 2014 and the ASHE 2013 guidelines actually talks about exam rooms being 6 air change rate. Now it's actually changed by addendum to 4. So it's no longer 6 that's required. 4 is required because they're saying the researchers in Johns Hopkins actually saying, oh, we don't need 6 air change. It's not required for exam rooms. You're not opening up any patients. You're wasting a whole lot of energy. So they just opened it up and said 4 changes. So who knows what's going to happen in terms of ORs, but the situations are, it's minimum that they govern, but the load actually dictates your air change rate. So the equipment that's in there, the amount of people that's in your space actually detain the amount of air change, not really your infection rates.
Kind of on that point, air change rates is kind of, our goal with air change rates is to clean the space out, right? So it's trying to remove all the contaminants from the space.
Yeah.
So we've been using air change rates since the 60s. Do you see a transition in actually measuring the air in space and saying, okay, how clean is the air itself and how good a job we're actually doing it, rather than just using a boxing air change rate?
Well, that should be the way that we're going, but because of the direction that surgery is going, and because you have keyhole surgeries, and because there's minimum invasive surgeries, how infections set in during the surgical procedure is when you open up a patient. So, you have to think about it. Is it required? Because basically we're getting much more intelligent in terms of, for surgical procedures, so we're not opening up people like what we used to do. We have lots of open surgeons that we're using minimum insertion, we're using keyhole surgeons, we're using laser treatments to treat tubular ablation in terms of cancer treatments. We're doing all sorts of stuff that doesn't really need incision actually to do it. We're actually inserting like micro, 5 millimeter, insertion into a patient and actually using a 3-dimensional camera to actually do surgeries by, so it's, yes, we should be measuring that environment if we continue with the type of surgical procedures that we're doing in terms of open surgeries. But if we're going to the future, it's not required, but it should be done, but it's not done because of the cost associated with it.
Have you seen any real-time bacteria monitoring in any of your OR rooms?
I have research that I've actually just talked to. I'm actually doing a presentation at Harvard Medical School next week. And Dr. Gessen actually done 4 different surgeries that they test all the bacterial count and stuff over time for new and it's not as bad as they thought it was. So there's the air system is doing a great job.